Anyway, back to the haircut.
This is I Don't Even Own a Television. Buzz.
There are books that are good, there are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all, 'cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about bad books. I'm J.W. Friedman.
I am Chris Collision, and if you read the file name, you already know that we are terminally excited to bring us possibly the most exciting guest we've ever had. My friend, your friend, Deadspin writer, and best editor I ever worked with, David Roth.
Jeez. Wow.
We're big on effusive praise here, for sure.
Yeah, that's good. It definitely puts me at ease to be held up as somebody worth listening to, so that I can then talk about a bad book for 90 minutes.
Well, we feel like you're uniquely qualified to talk about this one because this is a book I've wanted to do almost since I started the show, and I had never read it. I just knew it existed, and in my mind, it was going to be the best thing ever. And it's the autobiography of a 1980s linebacker, Brian Bosworth, called The Boz, Confessions of a Modern Antihero, written by Brian The Boz Bosworth with Rick Reilly. Now, Collision.
And almost every word of that deserves serious unpacking, college seminar style. But before we get into any of that unpacking, I have one very important question for you both.
Okay.
Are you ready for some football?
Oh boy.
It's a Monday night party. I've got all my rowdy friends, Collision, and the cat. So Brian Bosworth, I think before we even start to talk about the book, we need to talk about who Brian Bosworth is so people will understand why I was remotely excited about this horrible autobiography. Collision, I know you have some opinions. Why don't you get us started here?
I don't have that much to say, except that, in the mid-'80s, he was a very good college player who looked like a He-Man action figure and became very, very famous for some mix of those two things, plus the fact that he would occasionally run off at the mouth like a pro wrestling bad guy.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then he went to the pros, and I was living in Denver, and Denver was obsessed with the Broncos, and he picked a big fight with Denver's quarterback, and everyone hated him, and I think he got death threats, and then it turned out he wasn't very good at football and retired, and that is basically all I knew about Brian Bosworth coming into this what to call it, experience. But I really think when it comes to Bosworth, we should defer.
Yeah, let's go around the horn like a popular sports television program. David, what's your take on The Boz?
Come hot,
I will be great. I'm going to be getting points on it, and I'll get muted if I do a bad job.
Yeah, and at the end, I'm going to say rack 'em no matter what, so get ready.
I'm going to have a take, and I won't suck. So for Boz, for me, growing up, I was 8 years old at, I think, what now is generally agreed upon as the period of peak Boz. And he was, there was something about him that felt unreal to me at the time, not just in the way that athletes do when you're 8 years old. Like the picture of him on the cover of the book, which I'm looking at now and have been looking at for some time, if I'm being honest with you, does not look like a picture of a person. Like it looks like something that would be on the side of an arcade game, where the whole thing is that you're just wasting drug dealers, like a side-scrolling... it's... If the characters in Narc had faces or something, this is what they would look like.
I'm convinced that the Boz is a bad enough dude to save the president. Oh my God, no, you're right. So yeah, the cover of this book, this dude has a buzz cut and he's wearing blue mirror shade Oakleys and a collar that's up, and he really does. Yeah, you're right. He's from the side of an arcade cabinet. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, this is a little bit hard to talk about because it's a very visual point, but Jay, I know, read most of this book at an Outback Steakhouse. I read most of this book at brunch yesterday with my girlfriend. David, you read most of this book on the train.
Yeah, mass transit. It's the only way to fly.
Exactly. Especially with good company like the Boz.
Oh, yeah.
The thing about Peak Boz is he could get it.
Oh, he certainly could get it.
Like, he was a legitimately good-looking, charismatic guy, and he knew that, and just like gave himself a thin veneer of outlandish personality. And that's kind of what I remember from the time. And the biggest kind of kick in the teeth from this book is how little personality it takes to make yourself an outsized personality in the world of football.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think we need to get into plot in 60 seconds. Oh wait, I didn't talk about my Boz take first.
We should also talk more about how the Boz could get it, because
yeah,
don't think I didn't notice when you guys didn't pick up on that.
No, I mean, look, if you're into guys that look like Dolph Lundgren as He-Man, like the Boz is your man.
And if you aren't, can I just kindly suggest you find a different fucking podcast to listen to?
That's a good point.
Can I make one additional Boz point, football point? Sorry, Jay. This is the thing that I left out.
Oh, yeah.
No, I totally interrupted your previous Boz point anyway to make a bad dude's
It's
joke.
really, no. Honestly, you did the right thing, and you should never apologize for making a bad dude's joke. But also, I mean, with this, the one thing I wanted to say, so this book basically includes it ends at the end of his rookie season. And as I remember it, this is not actually true. I remember him getting trucked by Bo Jackson in a Monday night game. And in my mind, he died at that moment. And and like, I knew that he did not immediately stop playing NFL football after that. He played a total of 13 games over 2 seasons after that. But like, that is, in that image, it's just like Jackson ran right over him, and then he just burst into flames, and you saw like his Boz spirit like rising up above the Kingdom turf, and that was it. And I was like, oh, remember that guy? Like, the idea that like there's nothing in, like, I mean, he made some movies and stuff. There is a second act for Boz. We can talk about that later. But like, yeah, the fact that this book covers the entire rise and fall in like 250 large print pages, and it ends when he's 23.
250 large print pages with 3 blank pages per chapter. A generous illustration section.
Yeah. I was so pleased with the extra spacing between chapters. Like, I was like, that's honestly the boldest, brashest, baddest choice in the whole book, is being like, this is not going to be book length. So we're just going to have like, you can like take notes. There's going to be 3 intentionally blank pages in every chapter.
It's a great place to doodle little football men at the Outback Steakhouse, which sounded way dirtier than I meant it to.
The only surprise is it doesn't like actually call that out, and it's like now like workbook style. Like, write your favorite 3 things about the previous chapter. What was your biggest surprise? What was the thing that you wanted to hear more about for Boz 2, the Bozoning?
Wait, you're just describing our podcast now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a lot of time for other books.
Okay, so me with the Boz, yeah, I think I was around the same age, maybe a little bit younger. I know that I thought Jim McMahon was the coolest guy on earth because he had a mullet. And so when Brian Bosworth came along with his super mullet, I was like, holy fuck, this guy is the new sheriff in town. I had a poster, and I'm sure some listeners that are around my age will remember this, of Brian Bosworth in his football pants and like a cutoff jersey sitting on a Ferrari or maybe a Lamborghini's hood, and it was like a total beefcake poster, and that shit was in my room, and I like literally like would just look at it and be like, he's so cool. But I don't remember much about him actually playing football except for a story that may or may not be true that isn't mentioned in this book, that he arrived to his first day of practice in a fucking helicopter that landed in the middle of the field. And still to this day, I don't know if that's actual truth or urban legend, but it's so believable.
Too good to check. I mean, it really just, it feels right.
It does.
The world I live in, that definitely happened, because that makes it a more beautiful and more interesting world. Similar to that is that there's a ancillary character who's a running back in this named Buster Rhymes.
The mighty infamous.
And I choose to believe that this is a book from an alternate timeline where Busta Rhymes went into high-level college football instead of mid-tier rap stardom. And that, I just think that's the most parsimonious explanation.
Oh, we talked about this a little bit off the air, and I promised I wouldn't get into a huge argument here, but the timeline totally works for Busta Rhymes, the rapper, to have named himself after Buster Rhymes, the football player. I think that's way cooler.
But that doesn't make any sense.
You're trying to pull some weird Berenstain Bears shit on us, and it's not going to work. Oh, man. Okay, so...
Well,
I guess we got.
I certainly feel as though I've been put in check.
Woo-ha. We've got to try to summarize this so people who didn't watch larger-than-life football characters self-destruct in the 1980s know what we're talking about. So let's move on to plot in 60 seconds.
Nobody knows if you win it or not. You got 60 seconds to give them the plot. Plot is 60 seconds.
So we generally defer to our guest here. So, David, do you think you can make this happen in 60 seconds? Tell people what The Boz is about?
I mean, I'm going to have to pad it to get it to 60 seconds, but I can certainly... I don't imagine I'm going to run out of time.
Yeah. Well, all right. Now that all the suspense is spoiled, let's go ahead and start.
No, tell us when you're ready, and we will begin what we can only call the final countdown.
All right. Let me center myself here for a minute. All right, I'm ready to talk about the Boz.
Go.
Boz. All right, Brian Bosworth, born Irving, Texas, was a badass from his very first moments on Earth. He's always sort of bedeviled authority, and I gather had his shirt off a lot. He groomed for football stardom by his demanding dad. He immediately became a football star, and that became his lifelong journey of sort of butting heads with authority, but in a way that's like kind of aesthetically fascist. He was a high school football star on a bad team, recruited by Barry Switzer, the infamously, corrupt, hard-drinking coach of Oklahoma University. Became a star with the Sooners, butted heads with Switzer, the college president, the NCAA, left school after being suspended. Oh, is that it? Oh, right, 10 seconds.
10
Sorry,
seconds.
yeah, went to the NFL, got trucked by Bo Jackson in a Monday night game, and died.
Oh, that was right in there.
Good. I was too cocky.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I blew it. I left out a lot of the stuff about him liking Italian women. I mean, we'll get to it.
Yeah, we definitely will get to that for sure.
That crucial element of plot, liking Italian women. I think it is worth.
Well, no, I mean, let's be fair. That's how deep this book runs. That is a crucial piece of the plot.
It's true. It is an avant-garde experience in that way. It is worth noting that that watching him get trucked by Bo Jackson, and that is the only verb in the English language that is appropriate to it.
Yeah.
In that moment, like, I'm convinced that is what the Simpsons were referencing later when Poochie just had to return to his home planet. Because Brian Bosworth is very much the Poochie of the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
He's like...
100% Poochie.
Super. Like, I liked your point, like, where he's rebellious but with a completely fascist aesthetic, and it's just this very corporatized kind of rebelliousness where he doesn't give a shit what you think, and that's why you should buy his $200 sunglasses.
44 Blues available at Walmart, Target, and far more.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't know. It's just worth noting that. He did return to his home planet and did not get the second act that he so badly needed. He got to make one movie.
Well, there's an arc to Bosworth, and actually we should get out in front of this right now or we're going to get 1,000 emails. But ESPN did a 30 for 30 called Brian and the Boz that's about Brian Bosworth now. And he is a born-again Christian. He seems very kind of almost embarrassed about a lot of the stuff that he did back in these days. So, you don't need to write to us now to tell us, hey, he's actually a nice guy now. We've all seen The Thing. It's true. this book is hilarious. And
Yeah.
nothing will change that fact. So, yeah. But moving on, let's get into high points and low points because I feel like we're already getting dangerously close to some things I want to touch on. So here's a song.
And the points are low. High points. Low points, get ready to go.
So high points of the book. Let's do high, low, low, high, the old compliment sandwich. And we'll begin with your first high point, David.
For me, it's when he talks about subscribing to Bon Appetit magazine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of there's stuff in there that's actually, like, sort of accidentally interesting. But the posturing stuff, I mean, the one thing that I want to drive home beyond the stuff where, you know, you did correctly point out that he's not quite as big a turd as he was. It's an incredibly poignant thing to ask a 23-year-old to write or dictate an autobiography because they have no life experiences and don't really know anything. And so there's a lot of this, like, posturing stuff in there about, you know, like, I'm not who they say I am, like, I actually like to travel, you know, like, I wear a shirt sometimes at dinner, like, never at lunch, but there's, like, all this, like...
My favorite movie is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which he mentions, like, 80 times.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Okay, but actually, a side note. I just want to note that he says he bases himself on that character,
Which is
and I'm like,
frightening.
brother, I'm not sure
Yeah.
you watched all the way to the very
Right, I
end of
was
the
gonna
movie,
say.
like all the way to the point where like things have stopped happening and like white text is running up the screen.
Like, he, like, just saw the scene where, like, Jack Nicholson has Danny DeVito on his shoulders during the basketball game. And he's like, that looks fucking awesome.
That's me.
Yeah, that's me. We're gonna remake, I love Twins. And then, like, eventually at some point, just sort of got distracted and went to go lift weights and did not see the last 30 or 40 minutes of the film. But the Bon Appetit thing is great, too, because it's such an 80s... the whole book is, like, a really super 80s vibe in terms of it being, like, both, like, rebellious in a way that is, like, fundamentally a grift. and
Rebellious in a way that includes Zubas.
Right, yes. I mean, that, like, aesthetically rebellious in the sense that you're, like, making yourself look progressively more like, whatever, like a character from Bad Dudes. But that's, like, the whole of the entire, you know, rebellion. The idea of the Bon Appetit and I know my way around a wine list bit, to me, was just a wonderful bit of Boz assuring you, not just... It's like the anything less would be uncivilized, like, deodorant ads. That this was, like, a very 80s joke that, like, these guys are barbarians, but, like, what if they were wearing jodhpurs? Like, what if you were to ask them to use a crab fork? You know, like, any of that shit. It's such, like a luridly 80s vision. I found that bit very transporting, very economic.
I like to hit people super hard, and when I'm done, yellow French's mustard is not for me. I'm a Grey Poupon man.
I mean, he is a step away from proclaiming that he doesn't own a television during those chapters, so that part made me excited. All right, Collision, your first high point.
I'm gonna stay fairly similar in identifying a high point that is literally kind of one sentence, where he's talking about his hate mail that he gets, and brother, he gets a lot of hate mail. And he says the following: now when I get mail, the first letters I pull out are ones from Colorado and Miami, the two places in the country where people hate me the most. You'd be amazed what people can write with crayons.
The very first paragraph in this...
Sick zinger.
Yeah, the very first paragraph in this book says, the citizens of Miami, the ones who weren't in jail, in parentheses. He hates Miami. Anyway, sorry.
He hates Miami, but it goes on to what I think is the best zinger in the book. It's even better than I get hate mail written in crayons. Some of them have even contributed pictures, probably because the author was illiterate. Usually the picture features me, my mouth, and a giant penis. And I think that's fucking hilarious.
That is pretty cool. It's a real American Vandal vibe going on there, for sure.
I don't know why that sentence just like that's like basically dead center in the book, and it's right before the photo illustration section, which came as a massive relief because I was like, that's 10 pages where I don't fucking have to read.
Yeah, for sure.
So that might have been why that was a high point for me.
And there's a photo there that we need to talk about, but I'm not going to waste that on my high point here because since we've all just kind of isolated a sentence, there's one sentence in particular that really jumped out at me that I wanted to talk about too. Kind of once again establishing Bosworth as a guy who's in touch with culture. I have a feeling this is a Rick Reilly line. It's Bosworth talking about traveling with his friend on the team, and it says, "We were like those guys from Blues Brothers."
Yeah.
Oh, cool. You mean the Blues Brothers? It made me laugh so hard out loud when I read that line.
You're like, do you mean Ray Charles? Do you mean Donald Duck Dunn?
Yeah.
Perhaps you mean Aretha Franklin, Matt Guitar Murphy.
Or maybe the Nazis, because
That's
that's
what I was
like
gonna
more
say.
of his fashion sense.
We were like those guys from the Blues Brothers, Nazi Henry Gibson, and whoever else was in the car with him.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe you're right.
Those angry cops who end up upside down and spinning slowly.
Oh, okay. Time to go a little darker here. Let's do some low points. David.
I know that this is probably on all of your lists too, but as I'm the guest, I will avail myself of it. The section that I have in my notes as on bitches, pages 140 to 145, is the most embarrassing thing that I have been reading sports books since I was a kid. It's part of my work to read them sometimes. You see some shit. That is the most embarrassing 5 pages of biography that I have ever read.
Are you saying sentences like, Sybil Shepherd is not beautiful, I would let Debbie Gibson touch me? That something about that embarrasses you to as a grown-ass man to read in public?
When you put it that way, I'm actually wrong. It's insanely good, and I withdraw that statement. I apologize for wasting your time and mine.
Raquel Welch's daughter is hot.
That's the best. Name her. Show some respect. First of all, you know that he knows who Tawny Welch is because Brian Bosworth has seen Cocoon.
Yeah.
He watched Cocoon, and he became horny during Cocoon. This is all. It's right there in the subtext. We know that this is true. But then he couldn't bother the idea of like, she's the one person that you're going to mention, and you can't even say. I mean, her name is fairly hard to spell, but it's not. This is a book. There's people helping you. Just say, God. I mean, so what? Do you guys have a specific moment from the On Bitches section that really jumped out at you beyond the Sybil Shepherd is not beautiful? Italian women I love is the sentence that I underline most vigorously. But
Yeah, that's a good one.
But there are a lot. I mean, this whole section of the book is basically unreadable because of all the notes that I put into it.
The thing that I liked/hated the most, I guess the thing that like made me realize I was actually still reading a book and not just like, going through a mechanical act of causing page numbers to increase, again, at brunch in public, was right after, as this section is winding down, and you're right, it's colossally embarrassing, we get the following paragraph. I'm not going to read the whole fucking thing. What else? ... I hate smokers. I hate old people with driver's licenses who can't drive. And then he goes on that for a long time, and it's really just like a guy who was asked for a tight 5, and all he's got is 3.5, and then he just thinks he can riff his way to the end, which is shitty enough if you happen to be watching Letterman reruns. It's absolutely infuriating to encounter in a hardback book. Like, the first thing I did, because I'm a brain genius, is I took the fucking dust jacket off, so it looks like I'm reading a tasteful black and blue hard. It could be literally anything.
Yeah, except it says "The Boss" in huge letters on the
I was
side.
gonna say, you can only do so much, man. It's not like no one's gonna be like, "Oh, is that Henry James's The Boss?"
But you guys have the dust jackets on. Can you tell me what this thing retailed for at the time in the halcyon years of somewhere between 86 and 88?
It doesn't. $17.95.
So 18
yeah.
fucking dollars to hear a guy actually be transcribed saying, what else? ... pause to think, tepid prefiguring of the worst Dennis Leary routine.
Well, and there's a chapter in here that literally ends with the sentence, "Time to start a new chapter."
That was my favorite bit, though. That was actually like a glimmer of like authorial voice, as opposed to it being like Boz being like just a boring ass 22-year-old being like, "I do like tits. Asses are also good." Like there's that. Like that's when you can hear Boz, and then the rest of it is just like Rick Reilly cannonballing in with these Reillyisms. Like, anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, and I want to jump back because I didn't get to say my favorite part from On Bitches, which is actually called. I just looked it up. It's actually called Fame, Fortune, and Females, which is somehow almost as bad.
Yeah.
But it's just this little pair of sentences here. Guys always say to me, "Man, I bet you could get laid every night if you wanted to." Okay, I could, but so what?
Like, we should note that his claim of the moral high ground, he has exactly 2 of them, and he comes back to them with the frequency of I don't know, something that happens a lot. And those 2 are these. 1, he did not sexually abuse literally every woman in Norman, Oklahoma while he was in college, but was there while it was happening from other dudes.
Yeah.
And number 2, he does not personally do cocaine.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
That's what he brings to the table.
Which he mentioned several times.
Yeah.
So. And he says she's a smoking hot fox, which was a great turn of phrase.
Good for you, Brian.
I do guess we're doing low points, right?
Yeah.
Collision, have you done yours?
I have not, and I want to jump back to what you said about like Reilly poking through. Rick Reilly was once considered like a titan of the sports writing industry. He was like, he won Sports Writer of the Year awards like regularly. He was this dominant force, and yet reading this book is just such a phoned in, dull experience. And the only times when he sort of pops in are these terrible references, and I really think like the Blues Brothers reference had to be pure Reilly. A couple of the other movie things, like there's something on page 1 where he's like, "I guess I'm a candidate for Halloween 4. There is no chance Brian Bosworth knew Halloween 3 existed.
Yeah, and when he starts talking about Breathless by Godard, I'm like, no.
People have different opinions about the Boz. I guess it's kind of a Rashomon situation.
And then it gets even fucking worse because these references are Reilly. There's one towards the end where he says, "It looked like the day of the locusts out there." Okay, number 1, that's way out of character. Among the things Brian Bosworth does not know about are the Nathaniel West book, Day of the Locust, the movie made of it. Number 2, if you're gonna make a reference, get it right. It's Day of the Locust, not locusts. And it just made me furious.
Yeah. There's a lot of little slip-ups like that for sure. For my low point here, I'm going to sound like a sanctimonious fucker, but it just bothered me. And that there's like a whole chapter in this book that just is Brian Bosworth bragging about giving guys concussions. Oh. And admittedly, we didn't know then what we know now about the long-term effects of repeated head trauma and stuff. But in 2017, it's very hard to read a linebacker bragging about how he likes to go in high and hit people under the jaw with the top of his head and say things like, "I didn't want to end anyone's careers. I just didn't want them to know what city they were in when they went back to the sidelines." Oh, man, it just... In the context of the modern kind of medical stuff we're learning in the sports world, it made me pretty uncomfortable to read things that are essentially like, "I was just trying to make him part of a murder-suicide in 20 years. So, yeah, didn't like it. Did not enjoy it. So that's my serious low point.
I mean, there's a lot of... That is completely reasonable. I mean, the violent stuff in it, I guess I didn't really think of the NFL as... it was never one of my favorite sports. But there's something... I guess I didn't realize how much carnage there actually was in it at that point, because I was a kid and these didn't seem like real people. Like, they really fucking seem like side-scrolling video game guys.
Yeah.
And
It's all Tech Mobile.
I went back and read about the end of Bosworth's career, and it's just like his last play was tackling a guy, Stump Mitchell of the Phoenix Cardinals. Tackled him in a way that Mitchell never played again, Bosworth never played again. Both of them were like severely damaged. Bosworth spent a lot of the rest of the rest of that decade in court trying to get Lloyd's of London to pay up on a disability. Like, he had insured himself. Like, his shoulders basically didn't work. Like, before that play, had tried to tackle Ron Wolfley, also of the Phoenix Cardinals, in such a way that he said that he later felt like he had ripped the right side of his body off.
That's
like,
horrifying.
Yeah, like, so knowing all of that, and then to see this sort of like Carney Barker shit about being like, nothing I like better than knocking a guy down so hard that he shits out an organ. That's like what I call like a Miller time, or just some like fucking Rileyism at the end of it, is like really ghoulish.
It is, yeah, for sure. Okay.
Although some of that is kind of like the only foreshadowing in this book, like the only literary device it has is about that, because he's pretty open about the fact that, like, as he's writing the book, he's 23 years old and can't put a coat on without assistance because his shoulder already doesn't work. Like, his ankles have apparently been turbo fucked since high school. His knees have been bad since college, and it's sort of like, buddy, a lot of people like to be able to walk when they're 60.
Yeah, so we got to do another round of low points, but I promise mine won't be as much of a bummer this time. But yeah, David, let's start with you again.
This is broad, but not like the Bon Appetit style posturing, but the sort of like really dated race shit is just another was a serious wince inducer for me. This was, obviously you're reading the Boz on the subway, like some part of yourself must be compartmentalized if you're me, and just be like, all right, so I'm the person on the train that's reading the Boz. There's always one, and you just have to deal with it. Those were the only ones where I was like worried that somebody would be like reading over my shoulder or like seeing what I was seeing, because it wasn't as constant as the sexism and like just the kind of the idiocy of that was. But there was a lot of stuff being like, even the black guys have to admit, like, I'm good at basketball. And it's just like, oh, buddy.
He's got this really typically 80s kind of, I guess, like, well-intentioned, awkward white dude racism where he just thinks it's so cool that black people are friends with him.
Yeah.
That he thinks it's, like, okay to say things like, I got this haircut. And then all the black dudes thought it was cool, so fuck those white guys, they don't have style. It's just like, this is so awkward to read now.
Yeah.
Like, it seems well-intentioned, but it's so stupid.
Yeah, like that's the race stuff is not like based on him, especially now like that we live in this glorious renaissance of like actual legit overt racism. Like, this is just like the oafish kind where like, if my dad has a conversation with a black guy, he's always like, I was talking to someone, black fella. Like, just like gotta like let me know about this stuff because it's like exotic or weird to him. My dad's in his 70s, like Boz is, as a man of his moment in 1987, is definitely on this like, it's like a type of exoticism that doesn't even...
Yeah. No, definitely. I even had in my notes, it's like, there was a particular type of white dude that thought like, like, this was cool to be like, even black guys thought my clothes were awesome. And it's just so silly now. But yeah.
Although, we were talking about this a little bit off air. So this is actually, and this is odd, the second football related book we've done. And in terms of race, I think the Boz is probably closer to the side of the Angels than Jason Elam.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Who is, legitimately, as we've noted, Islamophobic, and like it's a true phobia. Like, if he sees a Quran, he starts sweating and like needs to leave the room.
Yeah. I've been really curious about those books. I have not heard the podcast of you guys. These were like him just sort of like reimagining Black Sunday over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Basically, yes, but like with an obvious authorial stand-in. That's this character who's a football player who quit playing football to be in the army, but then ended up playing pro football again as long as he could still secretly work for the army.
Oh my gosh.
And
Yeah.
he stops like 6 terrorist attacks, and the book like literally has people explaining to each other why the Quran is evil. It's horrible.
Jeez.
What was it? Monday Night Jihad?
Yeah.
Ooh, good stuff. Collision, low point.
Well, let's see if we can get a little lighter here. This comes very, very early in the book. I believe it's page 6, and I think gets at something that we haven't talked about much yet. And it's the following quote. I like to wear big black high-top Reeboks myself sometimes in the summer with white socks, white shorts, and a white t-shirt that says something like, "Eat me." Freaks old women out in malls.
Cool.
And like, yeah, this book is just a catalog of a guy who peaked between like his junior year in high school and his junior year in college, telling you stories about specific plays in specific games, and he just assumes you're deeply interested in this, which I guess is fair because this is an $18 experience.
What if Al Bundy was 23?
Oh my, exactly. And it's just so tiresome, and like that is a deeply strained effort to freak old ladies out at the mall, if you even think that that's a viable path to selfhood.
Yeah. I mean, he basically also just described himself as Bart Simpson.
Yeah.
Okay,
And,
so...
and I know Jay is also personally somewhat offended by black shorts, black shoes, and white socks.
Yeah,
but
come on.
I mean, it was the style of the time, as was the onion on the belt.
The boy's a time bomb. I do. I wanted to just my last low point here, and this is a much more lighthearted note than the one before, is just the section about his sociopathic driving style.
Oh, God.
Where once again, as you just mentioned, this is basically a 23-year-old, let's say a deeply unlikable 23-year-old being exploited by a deeply unlikable adult, and that's the tone of this whole book. So I don't know how much of this actually came from the Boz and how much is Reilly like layering his driving fantasies on top of it, but this is what we've got. I guess when you think about it, since I couldn't get a ticket, that meant I had no rules on the road. Having no rules is a great way to drive. You can pretty much break any law you want. It's like the Road Warrior. Just try to survive. You can go through any lights you want. Color is no object. You can do whatever you want to the car in front of you, go over any lawn you like, and drive on all the shoulders you want to get by any traffic jam you desire. I did all of that and more. If it ever took me more than 10 minutes to get anywhere in Norman, Oklahoma, then I must have not had my heart in it. And
Now, Road Warrior is a movie I believe he has seen.
not only has he seen, he's based his entire look upon.
Oh, yeah.
And also, that's probably why he likes that scene from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest so much. Real Master Blaster vibes. Sorry. Okay, high points. Last round of them.
Oof,
David.
Let's try to leave him posy.
So I will say that again, once you've lowered the bar to the point where you accept that the book is like a 23-year-old who's not interested in telling you a story about every bar that he's ever been to or whatever. My favorite was the nightclub in Norman or Oklahoma City that was called Confetti's with an apostrophe S.
Yes. He's
wait,
so stoked on it. Too.
Was that owned by Daryl Confetti himself? Like, I don't understand.
It's been in the Confetti family for generations. Giacomo Confetti came over from Perugia and opened it.
They had a big falling out with Albert Broccoli.
I mean, one thing that's really tough is doing the books for Confetti's, because that family is just really scattered.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, terrible.
Has to happen once every episode, doesn't it?
I gotta go, you guys. I'm sorry that something came up. But no, I would say that once you lower the bar and you accept that the book is dull because the person who's writing it is dull, and also the person who is his whatever, Boswell, also super dull. Again, all that said, there is the way that he kind of like backs into a what is still really like the current critique of the NCAA and the NFL and how exploitive they are is like actually, like it fairly, I guess, ahead of its time, or the fact that the NCAA has been exactly as shitty as it has for 40 years. Maybe that's also a way that you could wind up with a contemporary argument in 1987. But there's stuff in there that, like, I mean, I can't imagine. This is basically a book for less discerning children during whatever, like George H.W. Bush's presidency. Like, it is an extremely narrow window of appeal. But the idea of those children seeing that and being like, yeah, actually, like, it is kind of screwed up that these guys generate tens of millions of dollars for their schools and, get nothing from it. Like, it's undercut a bit by him constantly talking about all the shit he gets for free from boosters and
from agents and stuff.
Yeah, but the like that, I thought it was like interesting to see that because I did not know to what extent such a critique existed at the time. Like, I just assumed that everybody was still somehow just eating shit and dealing with it.
Yay, amateurs.
It's also worth mentioning, and that we didn't mention this earlier, he was in the NFL during the players' strike in the 80s, and he actually has some surprisingly pro-union sentiments for a dude who thinks of himself as such a badass individualist firebrand that I was kind of surprised when he's like, the union's only as strong as the players and stuff like that. I was like, well, goddamn, Boz is being sensible. Yeah. I even have in my notes, I said, holy shit, he's anti-cap for like 2 pages.
Yeah, those were kind of interesting moments, and it's definitely early to that. Although I'm sure, I think Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had some stuff to say about that. I'm sure, Bill Russell had some stuff to say about it. But in terms of like a mainstream thing aimed at children, that had to be some of the first sort of surprisingly savvy economic analysis to appear in this context.
Yeah, I mean, I dug it a lot. Okay.
I also like the idea that his peer group is like literally the 2 of the best big men that have ever played in the NBA, and then just like fucking Boz.
David, who's on your pantheon of who's on your Mount Rushmore of economically woke sports stars?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically Craig Hodges, Boz, that's it. Those are only a couple. Not really very many.
That's all I can remember. I mean, I prefer when they just stick to football and stay out of politics, am I right?
They can complain about getting exploited brutally on their own time. I'm here to watch them be brutally exploited.
Exactly. Oh, okay. High Point Collision. Last one.
Wow, this is really this is gonna be a jarring transition. But so Boz is sort of a proto troll, and one of the stories he dines out on the most is when he understands that people hate him, he forms a merch company and sells a lot of pro Boz merch, but also sells anti Boz merch. So even if you're buying anti Boz t-shirts, he's very proud that that money is going to him, right? And he brags about this several times in the course of the book. And towards the back half of the book, when he's on the Seahawks, he calls out one guy in particular, Brian Millard, for constantly wearing anti-Boz shirts around him.
Yeah.
And so it's okay if you buy it and wear it once and give him money, but it genuinely upsets him if you continue to wear it around him. And I just liked the troll getting completely masterfully dunked on by a coworker.
Yeah, that's the thing. The idea, Millard is his teammate. So the idea of just like basically like showed up at work every day that like specifically just had a picture of your face and was like, fuck this guy.
It's like the poster I made that says Gary sucks.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, and the idea too, like sooner or later, like the point where it's like, well, actually that's $15 in my pocket. The guy's like, I have this shirt that like I wear every day that says you're an asshole. Like I think like, it's
kind of an even
for me.
It's an even split to some degree.
Yeah.
It's also key because this book is 252 pages by, page count, with, again, 3 blank pages per chapter and a generous photo section. That anecdote happens on page 240, and believe me, narratively, you're just so hungry for a little comeuppance by that point.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to do my last high point. We're running really long, but that's okay because there's just so much to say about the boss. But my last high point, I'm going to condense it a little more than I originally wanted to, but there's an entire chapter about Boz's haircut in this. And it begins with him first saying that he doesn't really care what people think about his haircut, and then proceeds to write the longest chapter in the book about his haircut, which essentially the man claims to have invented the high top fade with lines shaved in the side, which maybe he was the first white guy to rise to prominence with that haircut, but he did not invent the high top fade or putting lines in the side of your head. But he gets so fucking possessive about it in this chapter that there is literally a paragraph where he calls people out by name for ripping off his haircut, one of whom, to my pleasure, was the wrestler Sting. And that was my high point for sure, was Sting getting called out for ripping off the boss's haircut. So, oh man, I don't care what anyone thinks about my haircut. I get my haircut from this woman, Pamela, and I made her famous.
Yeah, there's so much of that, like, adolescent, like, posturing for attention and then being a total brat about having received attention.
Yeah. Okay, we should probably take a break, and then we're going to come back and do some games, so stick around. Before we do games, we've realized that we've done you all a giant disservice because we didn't talk about not only the most entertaining, but the best written section in this book, the middle part that has a bunch of pictures. So, yeah.
And it's like, glossy. It's a glossy insert. Like, probably, I don't know, $7 of your $18 has gone to the production of these gloriously sharp black and white wire photographs.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. A lot of them are from Boz's childhood. However, the one I want to discuss the most is on the last page. It's entitled The Land of Boz. And David, I know you have a lot of context for this because I didn't even know who the Kostaka's brothers were until just like 5 minutes ago. And now my mind has been blown. So before we get into the content of The Land of Boz, let's talk about the chaps who made this.
So they're a pair of brothers who they had a vision, and that was what if you did sports posters, but also used inexpensive props, and not just some of them, all of the props that you could get. And so they would do these super whimsical, goofy posters for not just NFL players, but I think most memorably for NFL players. The one that I remember was for, I think it was the Raiders defensive back Lester Hayes, that for whatever reason they were just like, they put like a Thomas Jefferson wig on him, and they were like the judge, and he's behind. So he's
one of my friends had this poster hanging up, and you're just blowing my mind right now.
It's wonderful. So the place where I got all my sneakers when I was a kid was called Coach's Superstars on Ridgewood Avenue in Ridgewood, and they had. It was only those posters. They had the Darryl Dawkins one, like that just said like Lovetron, and he's holding a sort of a decapitated basketball rim, and he has his foot. Yeah. But he's also like dressed like he's in the fucking Sun Ra Orchestra. Like it's just everything is happening at once.
So amazing.
But I want to put on the table the very real possibility that was art directed by Darryl Dawkins, and that costume is, as they say, performer's own.
Yeah, it could be. But yeah, so Google these fellows, Kostaka's brothers. It's Costacos. I think what you're going to see here is a predecessor to what I refer to as the pen and pixel art style that dominated the album covers of like No Limit Records and Cash Money Records in the 90s, because it's just a photo of a guy, in this case Brian Bosworth, looking real tough in his sunglasses, with just a bunch of junk like superimposed all over the place on top of him, including a small child dressed like Brian Bos. And since this is the land of Boz, a joke, his shirt says Buzzkin or Boskin instead of Munchkin.
Right. So I had to look at this about 4 times. Like, we were literally recording, and I was flipping through this before I realized that this was a Land of Oz riff, and that's to my detriment because there's actually a football helmet with a witch's hat on it.
There's a beautiful 80s woman holding a Toto-like dog.
She was a Playboy centerfold. Boz mentions this with great pride.
But yeah, it's just amazing. Like,
wait, the Toto or
you're getting weird magazines in the 80s, dude. But yeah, Google this in particular, but probably the entire catalog, because my best friend Jeff in elementary school had a bunch of their posters all over his wall, and I thought they were the coolest things. So kind of like the Frank Frazetta of the sports poster world, as far as having a really iconic style that once you see it, you'll go, oh, that guy.
Yeah.
So all right, so moving on, let's do some games, and let's start out with the hardest hitting segment in podcast history. Dramatic readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
So we're going to take parts of this book, and we're going to read them to you. We like to start out with our guest when possible. So, David, are you prepared to get dramatic?
I feel like it, yeah.
Okay, let's.
Whoa, you're all fired up there.
Let's get.
No, I'm in a different sort of character space here, because I'm gonna not read this the way that I think that Boz would read it. I'm just gonna try to bring a different sort of energy to it.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So whenever you're ready.
That's one thing that pisses me off when people compare me to Dick Butkus. Butkus was a great player, but I don't play like Butkus. I play like myself. I don't think Butkus and I are alike. Butkus didn't go into a game trying to piss people off, trying to fight people like I do. That and knocking people's brains into their necks. I love to hit guys in the head. That's my trademark. It may not be the most effective way to bring a guy down, but it's the most effective way for them to soil their fruit of the looms. Bruce Collie from the San Francisco 49ers said I tackled too high after we played them in the preseason my first year. Well, Bruce Collie holds too damn much. Everybody says I tackle too high, but I do it because I'm going for the head. That's my favorite sentence in the book.
Jesus Christ.
Just a perfect circle. Nobody likes to be hit in the head. I hate getting hit in the head. Nothing hurts worse. And the more something hurts, the farther out of your way you'll go to be sure it doesn't happen again. It's like if you get a bad shock from your toaster. You just have cereal from then on.
No, you buy a new toaster, you fucking idiot.
I like the idea that comes from life. Like, he's just been like giving the toaster a wide berth and side eye since he was like 8.
That's a dog's mind, is basically what that is.
It's so amazing.
It's how dogs learn to understand the world. That, like, there's, like one time you went here and like you did a thing and then this thing happened. Yeah. Anyway, there's like that bit continues indefinitely, and I could certainly continue reading that section if you'd like, but I think that's where I would want to stop it, because the rest of it is all just being like, there's nothing like watching blood come out of a guy's ears, am I right? Like, that, no one, like we talked about earlier, it has dated like fucking milk, and no one needs to hear
that is the platonic ideal of this book too, because it's got everything. It's got like boring posturing, inflated sense of self, a catastrophically bad Rick Reilly-ism, because there's no chance Fruit of the Looms came from any mind but his. And I especially want to call out, I really like the sort of Broadway actor doing a solo monologue audition energy you brought to it. That was perfect.
Thank you.
You got the part, kid.
It feels good. Yeah, it was really difficult. I've been in character as Boz for months, and it has. I would say that it's had an impact on my personal life, but
I can't have sex after Thursday anymore. Because he talks about that a lot. So I guess Collision. Do you want to go next?
I'm ready.
All right, do it.
Anyway, back to the haircut. Some people might look good in it if they weren't too cheap to get it done right. They get it done for $5 by somebody who has no idea how to cut it. Me, I don't go for any $5 haircuts. I don't even go for a $55 haircut. In Seattle, I get mine done by Jerry Callahan, who does Hart's hair. He gets me for about $90 every time, and that's cheap for what he does. It takes Jerry about 1.5 to 3 hours to do my do, and I get one every week, usually on Friday, or else it would start to look pretty shabby. During the season, it's like a superstition before a game. It's relaxing. I sit in the chair while the dye for the stripes sets. That can take a long time. I'll either sleep or read a book. I picked Jerry, oddly enough, because he didn't offer to do my hair for free. A lot of the stylists in Seattle sent me letters telling me to come in and they'd do me for free. The ones that want to do it for free usually aren't worth a damn. Jerry takes pride in his work. He's not some groupie. I think it's paid off for him, too. He's been on NFL Live with Brent Musburger.
Quick, around the horn, though. What book is the boss reading? I'll go first. The Art of War.
I'll go second. The Art of War.
There you go.
I'll go third. The Art of the Deal.
Ooh, that might be. That actually might be more accurate.
Yeah.
I just want to. I can't not. So let me get back in. Let me get back into my space.
Pardon the interruption.
Oh.
We've expanded our horizons. Hair-isons on the sides, too.
Jesus Christ. That's in this book.
Yeah.
That wasn't just Collision doing his thing.
That's your $18, and that's your hiring the world's greatest sportswriter in 1988 to ghost for you. That's what you're paying for. Hair-isons.
Okay. So for my dramatic reading, I just want to do a part that really jumped out to me because it essentially sounds like something that Ric Flair would have yelled in the 1980s. Professional wrestler Ric Flair, known for styling and profiling and whatnot. Here is Brian Bosworth's. This is actually from the same section where he talks about loving to hurt people, strangely enough, but this is how it begins. I've been around the world. I've ridden in the nicest cars, the most luxurious limos. I've stayed in the penthouse suite at the Trump Tower, been to a World Heavyweight Championship fight, been on magazine covers, and met some of the most famous people in the world. I've eaten at 5-star restaurants and worn the fanciest clothes, but nothing does it for me anymore like football. Nothing gives me that capital H high except football. That rush. I think I'd be dead without it. I'd be like Madonna without her batteries. For me, football is more than a game or a sport or a job. For me, it's my whole ego on the line, my whole way of life. It's personal. When I'm lining up against somebody I hate, like John Elway of the Denver Broncos, or somebody I respect but also hate, like Herschel Walker of the Dallas Cowboys, it's like a pool room fight. It's like they're saying, I'm a better human being than you. All right, grab a cue and let's go. Fuck. Tell him, Hawk.
Yeah.
This whole book is Bart Simpson reading Mad Magazine and like, they don't care who they offend.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, if you wrote this book, who would ghostwrite it? Trey Parker or Matt Stone? Okay, I'll stop. I guess that's dramatic readings. Let's move on here to another one, the old WWTD. What would they do?
Sometimes the tensions are hard to divine, and others the clear as day. So tell me, what would they do?
All right, so we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of characters from this book, the black Reebok high tops and white socks of the only character in this book, really, the boss. Collision, I know you had a scenario prepared.
So, possibly the best sentence in this book that we have not yet talked about is the following. And if you've got kids in the room, you're going to want to pause this and get them the fuck out of here.
Yeah, for adult ears only.
Yeah. The only thing I like more than playing football is making love. I guess third is freaking old ladies out at the malls.
Yeah, I opened a can of beer there because we didn't have champagne to pop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I got it wrong too. The only thing I like as much as football is making love.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
be real.
Yeah. Okay. You are Brian Bosworth. And we're gonna start with Jay on this because he's had a little bit of heads up on this.
Yeah. I marinated on it a while.
It's time to flex. It's time to have sex. Boz talks a lot about how much he likes loud music. He talks endlessly about his $7,000 car stereo. He talks about getting free stereo equipment for his house. You are Brian Bosworth. What is your Fuck Jams playlist?
I mean, to start with, the obvious choice is you need to start with the Super Bowl Shuffle, where Walter Payton does in fact inform you that running the ball is like making romance. But beyond that, I think Bosworth portrays himself and reveals himself to be throughout this book as an exceedingly cultured man in that very surface level 1980s Playboy cookbook kind of way. And so I think there'd be a lot of Sade involved, honestly. Some smooth operator.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like now when I was in my teens in the scene I ran in, it was always cool to talk about how you like to get it on to like Pony by Genuine and stuff, which I don't think anyone's ever actually done unless all right, yeah, there are hand signals happening on the other side of the room.
Chris,
But
congrats.
I'm just saying, like, I'm sure Smooth Operator and quite a few other Sade songs were on there. Maybe some Denise Williams, Let's Hear It for the Boy, but only after the act is finished.
So yeah, you've come up. The Boz has asked you if you'd like to see his etchings. You're not quite sure what to expect, but you get in
drew
there.
his key from the bowl.
And yet somehow, like, the Boz's, penthouse suite is inexplicably lit entirely by candle, and there's some like smooth operator playing at eardrum shattering levels.
Yes, exactly.
I'm there for that. David, what do you think?
The idea of it, I mean, I think that Jay is obviously correct. The idea of that sentence, what it put into my head was the idea of him approaching making love exactly the same way that he approaches football in terms of getting motivated, which means that it would be like y'all ready for this, like that sort of.
Some jock jams.
Right, yeah, which I think would be fantastic if it was the sort of thing where it's all just about like making the numbers go up. And so it's just, so he's like nude, he's got sunglasses on, there's nothing else, and he's listening to like Thunderstruck by AC/DC.
Yes,
Probably.
Like knocking out push-ups. Like that's what popped immediately to mind.
and he does the same pre-game ritual where he takes like 8 no-dos, each of which is 4 cups of
Pours
coffee.
a flute of champagne for his lover, and then like crushes up a handful of caffeine pills. Just rails him. Yeah.
And sorry to get off topic, but in the paragraph where he describes taking 8 no-dos, he then goes on to talk about how he drinks a mystery elixir. I don't even know what's in it. It just makes me play better. And then the very next paragraph is, I don't take any drugs before games.
Yeah.
It's like your doctor would probably argue with that statement.
I don't knowingly take any specific drugs before games. Like,
I like the jock jams idea. I like the idea of like maybe at the exact moment that Brian drops his drawers, Rock and Roll Part 2 starts playing.
I definitely had this vision when I was thinking about this on the way over of like the gravelly, gravitas voiced NFL Films guy narrating, at least in Boz's head, like, and now Brian Bosworth moves toward the undulating surface of the most expensive waterbed anyone has ever owned.
Good call on the waterbed. Bosworth had the biggest waterbed in Seattle. There's no doubt.
he had an assistant research what the biggest waterbed was, got one that was slightly bigger, and then sent that guy a picture of his waterbed.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Can you make the edges gold?
Yeah.
I've been to Trump Towers. I know what class looks like. So I also have a what would they do that I'd like to kind of put forth to you all. But in order to do so, I want to ask a question kind of a rhetorical one, but has there been a sports autobiography that doesn't include the phrase, if it wasn't for blank, I'd be dead or in jail? And has it ever been less accurate than it is in this book? Because Bosworth doesn't really come across to me as the type of dude who would have been dead or in jail if he wasn't playing football. So what I'm asking for you is, let's forget his real life second act that happened after football. If football never happened, what do you think Bosworth would do? And dead or in jail doesn't count.
I can jump into this,
Okay.
and I don't know why this came to my mind, but I just see him in a nice polo, like kind of a hard ass, but like once you get to know him, you realize that like, you know, he's your manager, but he'd run through the fucking wall for you if you do right by him,
and does regularly, literally.
Yeah, and that's why you're just so fucking proud and so fucking pumped to be working the register for the Boz at O'Reilly.
Oh my God, you're so close to
Auto
me.
parts.
I literally had in my notes in the book on that section when it said I'd be dead or in jail, I had a little footnote arrow and said, bullshit, you'd be managing a Pet Boys. So we're on the same page, but I was going to say, now that you've said that, he'd be the inexplicably hunky guy that works at a Foot Locker in the mall.
Oh, yeah.
That like all the 16-year-old girls go to pretend to try on shoes so that they can, you know, talk to Brian Bosworth, even though he's like their dad's age, but is still like kind of a silver fox. That's where I think he'd end up,
Or in this
because
case,
you stole my Pet Boys thunder.
or a bleach blonde fox. It's sad that we've both gone straight to retail.
Well,
Yeah.
auto parts, you know, it's the whole Oklahoma Texas boy thing, and,
Yeah.
you know, and I'm not in any way implying that this is because of his class. I'm implying because this is a man who loves to drive fast and talk about cars, and is also just a big beefy dude that I would totally expect to see behind the counter, kind of condescending to me because I don't know what kind of battery my car takes. So, all right, how about you, David?
I mean, my initial first thought was that he would be a cop, and that he would go into it thinking that he would be a cop who like plays by his own rules, but then he would just get really bored and be just like a regular cop.
I think you're so right. He'd be like, ooh, it would be just like an action movie. He'd probably like whistled the Police Academy theme like to himself every day for a while.
Wait. I really think we need to pause, write this screenplay. We'll call it Oklahoma Serpico.
There's a cancer eating away at this precinct from the inside, and only the boss can stop it.
Exactly.
So, but he would like come into it with that conception, and then like the thing he would find out would be that like other cops aren't as dedicated to physical fitness as him, and he'd be like sort of disappointed, but like you know, they're fine guys, like good family guys.
It's cool. I got a pension. I'll sit here with this radar gun.
Right. Yeah. Which is to say, like totally checked out by age 28. But like doing a lot of like unnecessary like roll and like evasive maneuvers like in pedestrian situations during the years leading up to that.
It's like Boz, that this was a traffic stop. There was really no reason for you to do a header over that hedge and come up with your gun drawn.
Holy shit. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of people know the boss has an acting career. He was in a movie called Stone Cold. Both of you have just blown my mind in that he should have been in Super Troopers. Because it's kind of him.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the thing about him is, you know, he's sort of a second tier wrestling character or something.
I'm really surprised in this book it's never explicitly mentioned that he likes pro wrestling, because he must.
He references it enough. That,
Yeah.
like, I mean, and with weird specificity, there's one fight he describes where he was like, it was like WrestleMania 3 out there. And I was like, I'm not actually sure what you think you mean, but that's a
Hulk slamming Andre.
Yeah, but in
anyway.
context, that doesn't make
Sorry,
sense.
I'm the nerd.
No, I know that's what that's the only thing that happened, but like that can't be what he's talking about in context. Anyway, whatever.
Maybe WrestleMania 3 was the most recent WrestleMania at the time this book was written.
I think that's a good, because I do feel like he mentions that that wrestling wanted him and that he was offered $1 million, but he wasn't going to do it because he had ambitions as a serious thespian and professional athlete. But yeah, it is strange. Like he did the extent of his collaboration with pro wrestling, as far as I know, was that he was a broadcaster for the XFL.
Yes,
during
he was.
During the year that existed. So he did work for Vince McMahon. He just somehow not in the one thing that he really should have been doing for him.
Yeah, I had a brief note on that in that, yeah, he did do XFL commentary. It was like the second half of the season after they realized it wasn't a good idea to let Jesse Ventura call football games. But yeah, he was on the broadcast team, I believe, with Brent Musburger. Yeah. I'm probably wrong, but I'm just going to say that anyway. Send us lots of emails. All right.
Correction, it was Gene Okerlund. That's an easy mistake to make.
Yeah, it is. It is, for sure.
I mean, has anyone ever seen those two at the same place at the same time?
We're running a little long, but I do think that we're reading a book that is worthy of the Russian roulette treatment, especially since we all have physical copies. So let's do a quick round of that. Here's a song.
Russian roulette, not actually Russian.
I want to call that out, that I'm so proud to be on this podcast with two of my friends doing this, and I'm even prouder that this is probably the largest group, even virtual group, of people who have ever come together who each have their own copy of this book.
Oh yeah,
that's a really good point. And unless you're talking about like a junior high book club circa 1986.
It's been 30 years since this many people were talking about this book at the same time, which is really amazing to think about.
I think that was actually also the rejected opening line of "Nothing Compares to You."
What if she tore up a picture of the boss?
Oh my God!
Fight the real enemy, and it's like the president of Oklahoma University. Nobody knows who it is. Like, that looks nice.
All right, I'm gonna go first. I'm gonna start flipping. Somebody tell me to stop.
I will do that.
I will stop, and then I will read whatever is on that page.
Stop. Uh-oh. We've already hit gold, folks.
People should just be who they are. I don't care what you're planning on doing. Go out and do it. Talk is cheap. If you have confidence about yourself, why do you come up to a complete stranger, me, and start telling me all about it? It'd be impossible for me to date anyway. I'd never trust the woman. I wouldn't know what she's hanging around me for. Back when I didn't have much money, well, not as much money. Sometimes I felt women wanted to go to bed with me for my body. But now I think they try to go to bed with me more for the contour of my wallet than for the contour of my muscles.
Okay, hilariously, what has just happened is that this book, and you now, have unconsciously embodied that joke, that horrible joke, where people take rap lyrics and describe them in the quote-unquote whitest way possible, when they're rephrased as like, my friends and I began at the lowest point in our occupation, but now we've risen to the top, with like a picture of Drake. Like, that's what that section of that book is.
Which actually I think goes back to, what was that jackass's name? Not Paul Allen. Steve Allen. Who apparently read the lyrics with a lot of gravitas to Bebopalula, She's My Baby.
Okay, see, I would have laughed at that back in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it's been done to death.
Yep.
Okay, you flip next. We'll tell you when to stop, David.
All right, I'm on it.
Stop.
Oh, I got some football one. This is good.
Ooh. Wait, he talks about football?
Yeah, this is one of the, I know the odds were against it. Then we thumped Kansas State the next week, 24-6. And that was my introduction to how worthless some Big 8 programs can be. Playing Kansas State is about as exciting as Rick Reilly here, visiting a great aunt in a nursing home. They were pathetic. They didn't even deserve to have a football team. It wasn't really the players' fault. It was the coach's fault. Jim Dickey. He had the worst schemes I've ever seen. They fired his ass the next year. He's probably running the IRS now. Ooh. Yeah.
Wait,
fatality.
Does the IRS not have good schemes, or is it just
they're
the IRS
horrible in the zone? It's really soft.
I was gonna say.
Or is it I mean, I've long said that the way the IRS runs the prevent defense, the only thing that does is prevent this glorious nation from becoming great again.
Oh my gosh. It's also the play that you pick every single time in Madden if you want to destroy your opponent's running game and annoy the shit out of them. Kick off goal line defense every down, man.
But that doesn't even. But what does that even mean? He runs the IRS now. Does it just mean that because I know Brian Bosworth is up on his fucking taxes. He does not find the IRS boring. He finds them like
it's another
opponent that needs to be
defeat.
crushed.
Yeah, no, that's a Riley.
Yeah,
It's a
the
Riley
Riley
moment.
stuff, that's the part of it that's so amazing. Is because the Riley stuff seems like it just comes out of like like Bartlett's Familiar Burns book or something, like just like random roast generator. And so they just kind of like pop up in there, and like that's one of those things where you're like, machine learning is never gonna replace. Because like that doesn't. Of all the things you could say about the coach of Kansas State football during the low ebb of the program, like. The idea that he seemed like a bureaucrat, like a mathematically minded one, like I don't know.
As for Vinny Testaverde, you can take him, like my wife, please.
Like there's this amazing page and a half that I do just want to call out, and it's about the difference between writers and reporters.
Oh, yeah.
Where he names a lot of sports writers by name
Gee,
and calls them out for their clothes choices, and I'm like.
Was this written by athlete Brian Bosworth or sports writer Rick Reilly?
Well, what's good about that bit too, where it's like reporters are trolls, like writers on the other hand are cool. Some of them can even dress. Like I bet girls would probably be happy if they paid more attention to these guys. Maybe they're missing out on a great time. Maybe some of these guys from Sports Illustrated are actually very talented and skillful lovers and considerate.
By the way, my phone number is...
It's also cool that bit he's whatever, he talks about all these assholes and he's like, and then there's some guys like Skip Bayless who like clearly are about their shit and like no, then you're just like, oh buddy, like
holy shit, you're right.
Yeah,
Skip Bayless
with the knowledge
is
of foresight.
actually a name he mentions. Oh my god, I didn't even miss that. I didn't even catch that.
Bayless he flags as a guy that's good, but then also he mentions woke television sportscasting superhero Dale Hansen as another good guy, which is like totally correct.
Yeah. So I don't know though. If you asked him now, I'm sure he'd hate him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Right.
All right, I'm gonna flip here. Collision. Tell me when to stop.
Okay. Stop.
Yes. Okay, I have to go back just one page here because that started halfway through a paragraph. This is about the boss just being a great guy and doing some charity work with a kid who had a heart problem who most likely did not exist. Not the heart problem, the entire kid. I wasn't playing in a spring game, so I hung out with the kid. I don't know why, but we hit it off. I let him ride in the Sooner schooner, brought him into the locker room, and gave him one of the towels my mom sewed for me that said Boz 44 OU. That was the only towel I've ever given out.
A sweaty towel? Thanks.
Thanks, dude. You let me ride in a shit boat and give me a sweaty towel.
Do you think you're fucking Elvis? Like, you can keep your sweaty ass towel.
Brian had this defective heart. He'd had an open heart surgery when he was 2, and they never thought he'd make it to 6. But I guess Brian doesn't give a rat's ass what other people think, same as me. He never even let it enter his mind. So now he was going in for a heart transplant, and his parents told me there was an 80% chance he wouldn't make it. They say Brian took that towel with him into the operating room that day, which is extra gross now that it's been described as sweaty. His dad called me from Boston and said the nurses tried to take it away from him, but Brian wouldn't let him. He just clutched that towel all the way through. His parents said they thought I inspired him to survive the surgery. I don't believe that. I just think Brian is a tough little cuss. I know he is, because after the surgery they said he'd only live 6 months. Well, he's 10 now. I got a letter from him the other day, and he's about to start playing t-ball. Can you believe that? For somebody with a bunch of messed up aortas and ventricles, that kid sure does have a lot of heart, Rick Reilly. So,
can't you just see Riley at his ranch home somewhere in the foothills of Colorado, just like typing out HERT period, just like leaning back. He pushes the typewriter away from him. Like,
does the Stephen Cannell like pull it out of the typewriter and throw it in the air?
Yeah.
It's like grabs his pipe, lights it up, and is like, You've earned that old fashioned tonight, man. You really did your job.
Like most good rap punchlines, I feel like that was written working backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. All right. We've done some games. We should probably get out of here and then come back and do some recommendations. So one more break time, and we will be back.
After that, we throwing them rhymes like cans and vicious attempts at jaw cracking with jabs. Don't respond, don't want none. Hold your temper, bite your tongue. Shining sun, burn like sun rays. Stick up for days, last the haze. Don't respond, don't want none. Don't wanna test where the spire is from. Shining sun, burn like sun rays. Stick up for days, last the haze.
All right, welcome back. Our Bosworth career is over, which is a good thing, and we didn't even have to get trucked by Bo Jackson.
I feel like the left half of my podcast got ripped off.
I kind of do too. But now that we're done talking about this book, we're going to recommend things to you that are not quite so awful. And I'm going to go first, and I know this is a repeat recommendation, but I think the last time I did was very, very early in the days of the podcast. And I'm going to recommend Jim Bouton, who was a pitcher in Major League Baseball. He wrote an autobiography called Ball 4 that he actually wrote himself that is incredibly witty and entertaining and has great stories about Mickey Mantle being a dick to children. So check that out. He is a dude who was ostracized by almost everyone he played with for bringing a notebook into the locker and constantly writing things down. So he's got a very unique take on the sport and a really good sense of humor, and comes across exactly the opposite as the way Boz does in this book, which is to say, likable. So check that shit out. David, how about you?
I mean, just I guess if we're thinking about football-related books, I think Nate Jackson, who played for the Broncos for a while, wrote a book called Slow to Get Up. That was, I believe it was called Slow to Get Up. That is, I've read excerpts from. I've not read the entire text, although it is in my home. And it is very much about, it's a different perspective on what it's like to play football for a living. For instance, the person that's writing it is not a megalomaniac. But it's just like a guy that was kind of like a working football player, but just the stuff in there about the insecurity, the sort of like constant concern about your position on this, pecking order, and the arbitrary physical punishment that comes with the game. Does a lot to sort of undo the, romance doesn't seem the right word, but like the stuff in this book about like, I love violence, nothing gets me off like violence, like that stuff, that like decades of encrusted bullshit of that kind has so obscured what football actually is, that the idea of it as a job, and as something that is not like, or obviously in this particular terrible moment in our history as a political cause, like it is a thing that does things to the people that play it, and it has appeals and it has downfalls. And I, as somebody that cares about sports and cares about books, that is far more interesting to me than like whatever one boring 23-year-old's perspective on things.
Yeah.
Boring and strainedly and strenuously controversial.
Yeah.
A guy who saw Jim McMahon and was like, ooh, what if that, but with better hair?
What if that, but also Axl Rose?
What if controversial, but no actual opinions?
Yeah, exactly. I'm controversial because the way I look kind of pisses people off. Which, once again, as you mentioned, the bar to be controversial in football, especially in the 80s, was pretty damn low. You just had to piss off a bunch of crusty white dudes from Minnesota. Much like an F+ Live event.
Oh,
no, that's a compliment.
Maybe the best character moment in the entire thing is he's really pissed off when he gets to the Seahawks because some guy had said to the media, like, this guy really sounds like an asshole. And he like marches up to him in the locker room, and he's sitting in the corner smoking a cigarette. And the guy just looks up and was like, hey, nice to meet you. Glad to have you on the team.
It's like, and then they became friends because that guy was just being honest.
Yeah.
He wasn't talking shit and trying to start a fight. He was literally like, yeah, I've read about that guy. He sounds like an asshole. Oh man, I'm sorry. I just jumped way back. Collision, your recommendation.
Yeah, so I'm gonna stay extremely on brand and admit yet again that I haven't really been reading a lot, but a thing that
Here comes Rebecca Solnit.
exactly the introductory essay to a recent Harper's by Rebecca Solnit.
God damn it, I was
For
joking.
goodness sake.
No,
Did you rehearse this?
No, that was literally a
Wow.
joke.
All right.
I am just a deeply predictable man, and we spend a lot of time together.
I feel like a giant asshole now. I may edit that out just to sound less shitty.
Anyway,
Anyway.
there's a briefish essay by Rebecca Solnit that's kind of an extended musing on the personal and political utility of what we call preaching to the choir. And it takes a little while to get going, but by the end, it had really changed some of the ways I think about what it means to care about politics, what it means to talk about politics with people you do agree with and people you don't agree with. And as somebody who likes to pick pointless fights online because I'm stupid and far too Brian Bosworth-like, it has informed my praxis in some interesting ways. And it's free and you can read it, and I recommend that you do.
I'll mention I read the same article and had a very similar reaction. It will really make you think twice about the ways you engage, especially with social media.
Yeah.
And it's worth checking out. Man, we're serious all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, by the way, Brian Bosworth, his hair is stupid.
Oh, it's so stupid. I get so offended by his haircut that I can barely think straight.
Me too. It makes me want to send death threats to a professional athlete.
I got so mad about his hair that I drew a very detailed picture of him blowing a big wiener.
And I didn't get aroused at all.
I didn't. That's not what I did it for. It was for, I had my own, it was to show him that he should do that.
It was for comedy, guys, right? Yeah, just,
This is normal.
you know, like,
Do
wouldn't
these
it be
veins
funny?
look real, by the way? Yeah.
Hey, wouldn't it be funny if we kissed right now? I mean, as a joke.
Can I do a supplemental recommendation?
Yes.
Because we've hinted around at this, but Brian Bosworth did have a very robust second act, to his life and to his career as part of what I like to think of Brian Bosworth's like central idea in this book and throughout his life, which is to say, "Fuck you, F. Scott Fitzgerald." So
Okay.
wow, that one didn't land very well.
No, it's all right.
It just took a second for it
Yeah,
to click.
it was. That
for me,
wasn't where I
that's all.
thought you were going. Like,
Yeah.
it's-
I mean, it's obviously, it's just right there on the page.
Yeah.
But after his career ended, we talked a little bit about his movie career, which had one real high point. But he also had, and you can find this on YouTube, one of those couch shows where strong personalities respond to the news of the previous day. And that was called The Boss, The Boz, and T-Boz, which was
Whoa.
Brian
What's that?
Bosworth, Bruce Springsteen, and T-Boz.
T-Boz.
Yeah.
From TLC.
From TLC.
that's not real at
He
all.
also briefly fronted, and you can find this on Bandcamp, Boston, which was a Boz-fronted tribute band.
Holy shit,
to
it's
the
like
music
Metallica.
to the music of Boston.
It's just like Metallica, except real. And for those unfamiliar, Metallica is a Metallica tribute band fronted by a Gallagher impersonator who created the idea for the band while he was in jail. And beer just came out of Collision's nose.
Yeah.
I win.
And you can't easily find this on YouTube because it's very new. It's his most recent venture. It's a cable access show on in LA called Boston City Limits, where he just presents up and coming musical acts.
Are you shitting
and
me?
kind of MC.
All of this
yes,
is
all three of these are
100%
fake.
fake.
Oh, God damn it. See, I believe anything with this man. But I was like, all Wikipedia said was that he was in a bunch of Christian movies. God damn it, I wanted to see him front Boston so bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
Boston is
See,
an amazing idea. It's also maybe the flinkiest thing that I've
Yeah.
ever heard.
well, now I no longer feel bad about the Rebecca Solnit shit because I just got thoroughly fucking
Yeah.
duped on air. So, oh man, I'm gullible as shit. Oh, okay, moving on. I guess we have some correspondence. Hopefully not death threats. Here's a song.
Letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter. Got a lot of letters.
All right, so sometimes we get letters. Sometimes they don't even involve drawings of us performing fellatio.
It's true. This one, again, I don't have a specific letter because many corrections came in around this.
Oh boy, my favorites.
A couple of episodes ago, we were talking about a sword and sandal sorcery affair. Where we tried to cast a movie, and I pitched the idea of, this busty wench could be played.
Christina Hendricks.
Exactly. And people lined up to let me know, and us know as a show, that had in fact happened at least twice before, including on an episode of Buffy, or maybe Firefly, where she's
Firefly, it is. She's a courtesan.
Yeah, where she's not even like a named character. So I just want to say, in your face, attempted correctors, all that does is show that I was right.
Yep, good point. I also just want to go on record as saying that same character was also cast in our Facebook discussion group, the I Don't Even Own a Television Fun Time Party Pit, with a much more accurate choice of Jennifer Tilly than any of the people that we described, including a photo where the name of the character, Tanda, was superimposed directly over her boobs. Right. So, yeah.
Anyway, so all of this is just by way of saying, if you want to correct us about football, don't.
Yeah, here's the thing about podcasting. Sometimes you say dumb shit and you know it's wrong the minute it comes out of your mouth. So the minute you stop recording, you go and you look it up and you go, oh, God damn it. So then when 16 other people tell you were wrong, it's hard to maintain a positive outlook. Yeah. And keep your Boz-esque PMA working overtime.
Ooh. Oh, shit, Boz Brains would have been...
Oh, yeah. What if Boz was in a straight edge band? He kind of looks like he could have been in Strife or something. They had similar stupid haircuts. Anyway, before we go too deep into weird niche entertainment...
Earth Bosworth? No, that doesn't work.
David, thank you for being on the show. If people want to keep in touch with you and what you're doing, how would they do so?
You can read the stuff I write at deadspin.com. And I'm doing a series for Medium on how the internet makes people insane, and I'm writing that as fast as I can, but it is also happening to me as I'm writing it, so it's I would say occasional at this point. And then I'm on Twitter like a fucking idiot at David_J_Roth.
Awesome. And yeah, I just want to mention too, since we kind of got a little serious earlier anyway, that some of the stuff that you were writing about Kaepernick, I think, is some of the most interesting stuff that came out of that discussion, and is really, really worth people looking up if you're listening at home. So, yeah, not to get too like fanboyed out, but yeah, I really appreciated a lot of that writing. So,
thanks very much.
And if people haven't read your stuff on Baffler recently, they absolutely should do that as well.
Oh yeah, I did get to do some stuff that was extremely cool. I've been reading that magazine since I was in college, and I'm old, so that was neat to get to be in there. I have a big piece in the next print issue of the Baffler on the NFL and the problems that it has.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, none of them involve wraparound sunglasses anymore.
No. Jesus. Lead status buried.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, so if you want to stay in touch with us for some reason, it's I don't even own a television at gmail.com. We're also on the social medias at IDEOTV Pod, and there's the aforementioned Party Pit, which you can find on Facebook pretty easily if you know what to look for.
And another thing to look for is the picture of David posing with this book in front of what I believe to be the largest portrait of Gary Hernandez on record.
Yeah, it's a Derek Erdman original. It's a Keith Hernandez.
Keith Hernandez. Sorry.
Originally designed as like I think a coat rack, but we have it up as art.
Yeah, and this is on Twitter. It's an awesome photo of David holding the copy of this book, which I believe we mentioned before we turned the mics on, with the caption addressed directly to Collision. Thank you for sending me literal trash. So, on that note, thank you for being on the show once again. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And until next time, I don't know, Brian Bosworth probably wouldn't ride a crab.
Keep hitting crabs.
He would hit him. Eat your crab daintily with the proper fork.
empty